Hello everyone, Q here, and today we have the next in the Monster Book series, and here we have the Dungeons and Dragons Fiend Folio. Now we did the previous Fiend Folio, which was from first edition AD&D, so let's go ahead and get into this book. One thing I want to point out, as I pointed out in one of the previous books, is that in the earlier versions and editions of the monster manuals, including the Fiend Folio, monsters were shown on the front and the back sometimes, but starting in third edition and 3.5, there's no longer really any monsters on the front. It's just imagery and that kind of thing, which I think is a very interesting take. Now I know for some people they want to see some monsters on the front. It's a monster book. But I also know from some others maybe it's better not to see what's in the book yet. In order to see what's in it, you've got to open it. So let me know where you stand on that. Do you prefer to see monsters on the cover as sort of a sample of what you're going to find, or would you rather be completely surprised and find out what you're getting once you open the book? Kind of like a spoiler, not having spoilers. Okay, now once again, I'm not going to go through every monster specifically. We're just going to kind of go through it, maybe point out some of the monsters that I used, have a brief discussion about, a monster here, monster there kind of thing. But basically just the general synopsis of what this book includes for the most part, monsters I've used, and maybe a brief discussion about some that I haven't used, but maybe would have liked to have used. If there's any monsters that you like from this particular book, whether you use them or not, let me know that in the comment section down below as well. So here we have the alphabetical listing of the monsters. Introduction, reading the entries. Pretty cool black and white art right there. One thing that I do like to see in the monster books from time to time is the use of black and white art. Some more black and white art, which I think looks pretty good. Statistics and skill points. Feats, treasure, all that kind of good stuff pertaining to creatures. And now we get into the creature section, and we'll go through this fairly quickly. So if I miss anything, I'll try to go through it to where I spend enough time on a page where if you really want to see what's going on, you can pause it. But I won't linger too long either. Now, I'll admit there's some pretty cool creatures at the beginning of this book that I really haven't used. Most of these I haven't used a lot of these from this particular Fiend Folio, such as the Blackstone Gigant. We have some really cool imagery, and in my opinion, the artwork, of course, in this book, just like the ones previous, is top notch. I do think that a lot of the artwork in this book was taken to the next level. Now, while some of it is, reminiscent of the previous, and a lot of this was done by artists in previous books, I do think that a lot of it has taken a step up. It's almost as if not only have new artists been brought on board that are better artists, but it also seems the artwork done by the same artists have improved their craft as well, or maybe had more time to work on it. That could have been the case as well. I know a lot of times when people are making artwork for these books, I know they're on a fairly strict deadline to get some of this stuff out. Some of them get more time than others, I'm sure. Crypt Thing is a creature that I use both from this book and from the original Fiend Folio. Same with Dark Creepers and Dark Stalkers. Pretty cool black and white art we have here, as well as some color art. The Death Dog is also a classic from the original. Demodans as well. The Feroz Stew, excuse me. Here we get into the demon world, demons, the blood fiends. Always some really cool creatures to use here. And I really like how they do expand on the demons in this book, far beyond even the previous books, by adding more Tanari, giving us different variations of similar demons and also elemental style demons. And what I mean by that is you have your aquatic based versus your ice based, fire based, and of course here you have Monodic Diva, or your extraplanar creatures. Same as we move into devils, we have, of course, different varieties of Batazu, which is always cool. The more varieties, the more options you have, the better. More dire beasts. Ethereal ooze. Kind of interesting concept, in my opinion. So what are some of your favorite creatures from the Fiend Folio, if you had this book? Are you familiar with this book at all? If so, what are your favorite creatures? What are your least favorite creatures? If not, from the looks of it so far, is this something you would consider trying to collect for your Dungeons & Dragons book collection? And are there any creatures you've seen in it so far that you'd be willing to use in a campaign, or something you feel you could fit into a campaign you may have planned or may already be running? Now, for those of you, now the four main here, I've used these before. I really like the artwork for these. Now, for those of you who have this Fiend Folio and the original Fiend Folio from first edition AD&D, which one do you prefer and why? Do you ever find yourself adapting creatures from one or the other to a particular campaign, regardless of the edition that you're in? I know I've done that before. I've seen creatures in various D&D books going, I wish this was in here because it wasn't for some reason, or maybe didn't have access to it from another source. But I had it in a book that I had, and even though it wasn't the same edition for the campaign I was running, you know, you can kind of homebrew them and kind of revamp them to kind of work in your current campaign, regardless of the edition you're running. Here we have the Demon Flesh Golems. Pretty cool. Pretty crazy artwork. The Brain Golem. Half-face Centaurs. That's a pretty crazy piece of artwork. I really like that. More lizard folk. Nothing wrong with getting more lizard folk and different variations of similar type creatures all the way around, like the Hucuva. Another fantastic piece of artwork, in my opinion. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. Imps. Iron Cobras. See, I never knew how to pronounce this one. Maybe someone can help me in the comment section. I think this is pronounced K-Orti. But someone knows better how to pronounce that. Please feel free to let me know. I really do appreciate it. The Kelp Angler. Living Holocaust. Kind of an interesting name. So many different varieties of creatures in this book too. Not just in terms of, you know, being variations off of common creatures, but also having, you know, completely new types of creatures altogether. Necrophidius, of course, is a new creature. But I like seeing new themes and variations on themes and those kind of things when it comes to creatures and monsters. I definitely think it helps to helps dungeon masters especially be a lot more creative, and of course options is never a bad thing really. The more positive options, I should say, you have, the better. The Shift, the Kuth Marin, I think that's how that's pronounced. If anybody in the comment section knows better than that, please feel free to educate me on that. I've never used that in a campaign. The Romani. And again, for the most part, I mean 90% of it, I'm really impressed with the level of artwork that has gone into this book. Artists did a really great job. I'm going to move that into position. You can kind of see this black and white art down at the bottom. Very simple but effective, and it looks good in my opinion. I know I really like all the different variations. The Shadow Asp, the Shidu, that's a classic creature that's been around forever. Same with the Skulk. I've never used the Sky Bleeder. New variations of the Slod, which I think is really cool. And some good artwork too. The Spectral Lurker. Looks pretty cool. If anyone's ever used that in a campaign, please let me know. And if so, what was the brief synopsis or the environment or the adventure that was built around it? How was it utilized? Because for me, you know, and many other DMs that I know personally, it's not just the creatures that you choose for the campaign, it's how they're utilized in the campaign. You know, if you're picking creatures just simply for the sake of using creatures, obviously they don't come across well in a campaign. But if they're picked carefully to sort of properly accent the campaign world that you've developed for your players, then it can, you know, by leaps and bounds, create a very memorable world and adventuring and questing experience for the players. It really adds a lot of depth and a lot of quality to the campaign when your creatures aren't just thrown in for the sake of being thrown in and are actually serving a purpose to further the story, to create tension in the campaign, and to you know, add textures and layers. Here we have the Thunder Worm, pretty crazy looking. Big old cloud worm in the sky with all this lightning coming off of it. I know I wouldn't want to see something like that for real life. The Tunnel Terror, another really cool piece of black and white art that for me is just really, really, really nice. And it's well placed too, I think. And that's the thing too, is, I mean, I've been praising the artwork in here, but if for some reason you were let down by it, let me know why. The Algursta, I never used that creature. Crazy looking creature. I'm sure I could probably find a use for it somewhere. Another really cool piece of artwork. Of course, the Wendigo is not a new creature. The Wicker Man. Now I'm thinking of a song called The Wicker Man. That's what that reminded me of. You can tell me who the band is that I'm thinking of from the song Wicker Man. Leave in the comment section down below. Let's see if you're right about that, if you get the reference. All right, the Yonti Anathema. Another well executed piece of artwork and well placed. I really like the page design here. I think it really helps to accent what they were going for with this book. I think for the most part in this book, the space utilization has been pretty good. Here we now are in the appendix with the prestige classes. All your different various fiends. Some more cool black and white and color artwork. Just very well executed all around. And here we're finding, as we get towards the end of the book, here's a recycled piece of artwork. We've seen that earlier in the book, but in my opinion, that's okay. I don't mind, you know, if artwork is recycled, you know, if it's truly going to enhance the book. Now, if it's recycled just simply because Now they're being lazy. I don't like that. I don't think that's a good idea. But if it actually can serve multiple purposes effectively, and it doesn't just feel like a rehash when they're using it, then by all means, in my opinion, reuse it. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about artwork being, lack of better terms, regurgitated and reused? Maybe even within the same book. Like we've seen this piece of artwork down here in previous pages as well. Now, there, for me, it seems more like it's being used as filler, where the other piece of artwork didn't seem that way. But they had this little tiny space. They wanted to have the space kind of taken up, so they put that in there. It seemed to fit. Is that something you're for or against? If so, why? There we go. We have the fiendish symbionts. Some more interesting black and white artwork. I believe this is also recycled from an earlier part in the book. And another appendix, monsters ranked by challenge rating, which is always good to have in a book. And there we go. All right, so here we are. Vanquish the Terrible Evil. Eric Cagle, Jesse Decker, James Jacobs, Eric Mona, Matthew Cernett, Chris Thomason, and James Wyatt. The noblest heroes must contend with the foulest monsters, whether torn from the darkest planes of existence or spawn as blights upon the natural world. The creatures bound within these covers will challenge stalwart adventurers of every experience level. This accessory is for D&D game captures over 150 monsters, including some of the most diabolical beings imaginable. While focused on extraplanar and otherworldly creatures, you'll also stumble across new creatures of every type, with challenge ratings that range from 1/8 to 25, along with 3 new fiendish prestige classes, 6 new templates, and rules for swarms, grafts, and symbiotes. The Fiend Folio offers a multitude of challenges for every hero. To use this supplement, a Dungeon Master also needs the Player's Handbook, the Dungeon Master's Guide. A player needs only the Player's Handbook. And now some of us really know you really don't need all that to play D&D. It's nice to have, but you really don't need it, as it states. So there we go, the Fiend Folio. I hope you've enjoyed this. We'll have the next video up coming very soon. I want to thank you all for watching. I hope you stay well and safe. Please feel free to join in the conversation in the comment section down below. And we'll see you in the next video. Take care, everyone. And stay safe and well out there.